Presentation of 13ABC Action News. Now, your table is ready. Join 13ABC's Jeff Smith with the decision makers of Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. This is the Roundtable.
And welcome to October here on the Roundtable. We so appreciate you spending part of your Sunday afternoon here with us. We talk about so many things during the course of 1 week. And coming up next week on Monday, there is a forum happening to talk about increasing the possibilities of passenger rail service here in Toledo. On 13ABC Action News, good morning. We tell you all the time about Detroit Metro and Toledo Express, where passenger traffic is there. We give you the routes, the construction routes you want to stay away from if you're taking a plane out of Detroit Metro that specific morning. But we don't talk about train traffic so much. We have got a group here today who want to lead us into this forum, this discussion. This is the 6th year, 7th year? What are we talking as far as these forums?
I think it's the 5th year.
The 5th year we're talking about, but Tim Porter, he is the chairman of NOPRA. Tim, tell our folks at home exactly what NOPRA is.
NOPRA is Northwest Ohio Passenger Rail Association.
And you guys look to do what as an association?
Well, we are the advocacy group to increase passenger rail and hopefully get the high-speed rail into the future. What we are trying to do is increase the number of trains coming through Toledo on a daily basis. Right now we have 2 round-trip trains coming through Toledo going east and west, and they come in mostly at night or early in the morning. It makes it really difficult for people that want to have a meeting in Chicago or Cleveland or something like that. Wouldn't it be nice to have be able to get on a train at 10 o'clock in the morning, go to Cleveland and enjoy either a baseball game or a football game and then come back in the evening?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's what we'd like to see. Back in 1950, when we built our station, we had 50 trains a day coming through Toledo. Passenger trains, not just freight trains.
And these days we've got how many going through there?
That's 4.
4 total. Diane Reimer Evans, she is Transportation Project Manager with TMACOG, Toledo Metropolitan Area Council of Governments. Good to see you. Thanks for being here with us. We are doing these forums again and again. Why keep going back to the well? Where's the importance?
Well, it's important each year to bring together our community leaders, our business people, our economic development people, our government leaders, along with citizen advocates, to keep in touch with what's happening with passenger rail, because exciting things are happening. Maybe not right now through Toledo, but right to the north of us in Michigan, in the Chicago area, throughout the country. And we want to keep on top of that and look for the opportunities for our region to be part of this progress.
Also with us this afternoon, Bill Gill. He is Regional Coordinator for All Aboard Ohio, a train enthusiast yourself, a train rider for years. And as you look to get out the message again this year, let's talk about where you see, I guess, the reality of Toledo being a hub for train traffic. Passenger train traffic.
Absolutely. Freight and passenger, we're concerned, and we're passenger
But freight's
trains,
doing well, yes?
Yes, but they'll continue to do well with passenger rail. We use the same tracks, the same infrastructure, and so where one benefits, the other benefits as well.
Yeah.
Toledo, as Tim mentioned, was a hub for passenger rail back in the 50s, and it still is, because this is the most popular station in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
And the plans for the future, if we get half as many trains through Toledo as is the vision of Midwest high-speed rail and the hub system around Ohio, we'll need to have greater capacity for handling them. And that's part of what the forum is going to be about tomorrow, talking about the station environs and how this might be improved and beautified and so on.
We're going to take a look at some of the drawings that have been put together. Last year, your council, your forum that was held, you had a spokesperson who came in, Thomas Carper, who said that Amtrak just couldn't afford similar service expansion in states like Ohio, where it receives no state support. As with so many things that we talk about during this day and age, the economy kind of the backbreaker, and it so appears it is the case for rail service here in the state too. But we also want to bring people up to speed. It was back in 2009, when then Governor-elect John Kasich turned down rail money, high-speed rail money that was coming into the state. Wisconsin, Ohio, both sent it elsewhere. John Kasich at the time wanted that money to be used for other things, wanted it to pay down the debt this country was in. You got into a political discussion there, a political argument, because some saw the merits of not putting it toward this at this time. State funding still an issue, yes?
Yes. It is.
Plain and simple.
Yep. Plain and simple, it is still
But when's
an
that
issue.
going to change?
Well, we're not sure when that will change, but eventually it's got to change because it's so much more expensive to continue to try and maintain roads that we don't have the money to maintain.
Yeah.
And you think about it, that a single track of train carries 8 times the amount of passengers as one 2-lane road. Think about that as, you know, moving people. And as populations expand, you need to move people. I mean, people is moving people is money.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't, have people not move because they have to go to work, they want to travel, they have to go places. So, you think about that. Think about that total cost.
Do you think this comes up again? And I want to bring up a quote that came out a few years back when Governor-elect John Kasich was talking about this. His spokesperson coming out December of 2009 saying the Governor-elect specifically asked that if the money could not be reprogrammed, then return it to the Treasury to reduce the deficit. He finds it tragic that instead of saving taxpayer money, they would put it towards something like this that he doesn't see applicable in this day and age. So Diane, I ask, are we possibly looking at this resurfacing as an argument for high-speed rail traffic or passenger traffic in the next election, which comes up next year?
Hard to say.
Or is it archaic? Are we talking about a dinosaur here? Especially for Toledo.
All across the nation, there are great examples of states, North Carolina, California, Illinois, that have partnered with Amtrak, have gotten behind the concept that to expand passenger rail in their state to benefit their state economically, it was worth the while of the state to take state dollars and partner with Amtrak to invest in new and expanded and improved passenger service. That's happening in Michigan right now, where the line between Chicago and Detroit is being upgraded to 110-mile-an-hour service. So that will significantly increase and improve the travel time and the linkage between Chicago, Ann Arbor, Dearborn, Detroit. And the state voters and the state leaders have all gotten behind that because they see the economic benefits to the state and to the communities along that line.
When we look at big city connections, I wanted to show people at home, we've got a graphic to show them at home as far as the percentage of Amtrak's share. When you talked big cities, you talked about Detroit to Chicago. Look at this. This is city-to-city statistics. 96% of Amtrak's share is between Los Angeles and San Diego, 89% in traffic between Chicago and Milwaukee, 77% New York to Washington, but only 12% between Detroit and Chicago. So does that tell us that the Midwest, big cities, were not really seeing the need?
No, what it's saying is that they're in the process of doing those upgrades, and once those upgrades happen,
The Midwest just hasn't caught up.
we're catching up.
Yeah, no, that's what you're saying.
We're catching up.
Yeah.
We're working on that.
Is that what when you look at those statistics, Bill, and try to, I guess, compare and contrast what you see in those big city connections, New York and Washington, and the need. I know people have always said, you get a job in Chicago, you leave your car, you work downtown, you leave your car at home.
Right. Yeah, you don't need a car
But
in Chicago.
that's not a mentality that sits. It's going to be tough to change here
It's
in
a
Toledo,
mindset.
isn't it?
You bet, it is. And that's one of the things that the forum will do. And we have an exhibition called National Train Day each year. And this tries to do the same thing, to raise awareness of what the possibilities are. And Toledo is no different in many ways from a lot of cities that are doing well. And Amtrak ridership throughout the country has risen, and the money coming in has risen as well throughout the years. It's been something that's very positive, and Toledo needs to be, I think, more of a leader in this area than they have been in the past.
Speaking of leadership, that was one of the things that before we came on today, you were bringing up, Tim, just talking about this not only is you're just saying it's not only a political issue in trying to get the leaders, quote unquote, behind this.
Correct. I mean, you have community leaders, you have economic leaders, you have economic groups that are
Grassroots efforts almost.
Grassroots efforts
Yeah.
too, that need to understand that we have to move forward. We cannot rely on roads forever. I mean, you look at the latest American Civil Engineers report came out in 2013. They said that still 42% of Ohio roads alone are either poor or mediocre. Hey, how are we going to maintain those roads? We're having trouble maintaining roads today. And as
You
I
issue bonds on the turnpike. That's
Well,
one solution, right?
Yeah.
But does that make enough money to repair all those roads?
But roads
for
aren't-
across the city?
And to play devil's advocate, roads aren't going away anytime
I know
soon.
roads are not
Right,
going away.
Right.
But when you think about the future, we have to develop infrastructure that carries people. And rail is so much more efficient than roads.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could just kind
Sure.
of bring in the human element, I mean, if you just, when we look at rail passengers, who's on those trains right now? If you get on the train that's going from Toledo to Chicago, or from Toledo to New York, or Toledo to Washington, D.C., all places you can get to right now by train, who's on there? You have your business travelers who want, instead of being behind the wheel of a car where they can't do anything except drive pretty much, you can sit.
Or in big cities, sit in traffic.
Right, or in big cities sit in traffic. So you have the efficiency for the business traveler who can get on and use that travel time to do business. They don't have to shut off their cell phone. They can have their laptop. They can have their cell phone. You have the families traveling, where you can have the whole family traveling together. You can walk down to the diner car and have a meal together. You have the elderly people. Increasingly, we have a larger and larger group of senior citizens who really understand the importance of rail traffic, because you hit 80, 85, 88, you're probably not going to get in your car anymore and drive to see your grandkids in southern Ohio. But if you could get on that train and go see them, you'd be there in a heartbeat.
We put out a Facebook question to people this week. We asked them, what is the draw, if any, to passenger rail service? A couple of people, Chris Andrews wrote in and said, too expensive, it's crazy prices. Is it really? I can't remember. Last time I was on a train for a long trip, my parents took me to Toronto. I was probably yay big, and I remember it stopped a lot. But beside that, is it expensive these days?
It's not expensive unless you're going long distance and need a sleeping car. But a coach seat between here and Chicago, for instance, is certainly competitive with bus.
And
certainly cheaper than air. Yeah, you bet.
Significantly cheaper than air.
So, and much more convenient from downtown to downtown. So the cost is not prohibitive. If you're going to take a long trip, you probably need a sleeping car, and that will be extra.
Do you guys figure in, when you look at these dynamics of, especially when it comes to the almighty dollar and getting on a train, once you get off that train, what you're looking at cab fare, what you're looking at any other transportation costs, does it add up?
It adds up, and this is where intermodal comes in for passengers. We have a great deal of information on intermodal freight, but intermodal passenger is a growing thing in Toledo as well. And there are plans to, for instance, talk about bringing Greyhound into the passenger station, as well as local city buses and so on. This is happening across the country. I was interested to see the intermodal station in Milwaukee, for instance. They have state, federal, city, and private sector getting together to build this facility, $17 million project, bringing in all kinds of economic development for that area.
Yeah.
And greater ridership.
So this is these are private dollars going in.
It's private city.
Because Wisconsin was just like Ohio in pushing aside that federal money.
Yeah, private as well as state, federal, and city.
Oh, they are getting some money.
So it's cooperative.
Okay.
Yeah. And that same thing at King Street Station, Seattle. My wife and I were there and saw what was going on.
Yeah.
Denver, Dallas, Williamsburg, Virginia, where they're using this idea of connectivity intermodal at the passenger level.
Like we've been talking about freight for so long, the intermodal sites, FedEx, so on and so forth. We've got to take a break. Stay right there. We're going to get this commercial in and come back and continue our conversation. Talk a little bit about the plans you guys see for the station here in Toledo, and also the rail, the possibility of connectivity, talking other cities. When we come back here on the Roundtable, stay with us.